All right. Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Minding Mind podcast, where we live life with ease, connection, and permission to just be. I'm your host, Evelyn LeVasseur, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I'm sitting down and chatting with somatic business mentor, Juliana Lindner. We're going to talk about self-acceptance through self-forgiveness. And I feel like this is a hugely important topic because we beat ourselves up and we have a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. And I don't even know that we fully understand why. So I'm excited to get into this conversation. First, let me just tell you a little bit about Juliana. Juliana believes that living aligned with your true self is the path to fulfillment. Once feeling caged and constrained by self-doubt, she transformed her life through self-acceptance and surrender, discovering her mission to guide others out of pressure and into purpose. Her personal motto, break up with the past to create a life you're madly in love with, is at the heart of her work. Through intuitive guidance and emotional release, Juliana empowers women to leave limiting beliefs behind and embody their most authentic, prosperous lives. Juliana, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Evelyn. That was a great introduction, and we had a great introduction before you hit that record button because we're resonating with a very similar message, and I think that's even more. It brings a more powerful message when two people can communicate from different stories, but with a very woven similar message.
Oh, yeah. I feel like that's the beauty of just talking and sharing about what you're going through, because even though our stories are so different, like the pain that we feel is the same, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the solidarity is in women in general, being able to just speak out and say, this is what I'm feeling and this is so hard. It just prompts release in other people too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's moments, and it still happens in random moments. If there's like yesterday, I caught myself being a lot in my mind and not attuning to what my body was feeling. And so for hours, I was in my mind. And I noticed when I stepped away from the work that I was doing that I could feel this. There was a mixed sensation. There was a little bit of tension coming up to my throat. My body just felt more constricted in general. And as soon as I sat down on the couch and just let myself, like petting my dog and decompress a little bit, bringing myself and my attention back to my body. And there was just an emotional release. It took maybe not even 60 seconds to fully feel that emotional release. And then I'm reborn into this in this body. I don't want to say new body, but in this new energy, just by witnessing myself in that energy and letting it do what it needed to do, which was leave.
Yeah.
But be seen first before I leave.
Do you feel like that in itself is a practice? Because I'm going to be honest, I was somebody who, let's see, I would say that the majority of my life, and I'm still learning today, felt like vulnerability was weak and that my feelings were an annoyance. So I didn't let myself feel them. When a feeling started coming up, I was a master at shoving it way, way down, right? So when you say like to let yourself feel it and be in your body, how did you get yourself to even recognize that it was a feeling that needed to be felt? And how do you learn that like art of release?
Yeah, that's a great question because I too was a master at suppressing and avoiding. I did everything from, you know, going all out and punishing my body with weightlifting and literally waking up in the morning. This was in my early 20s where I would say, okay, how am I going to crush my spine today? And I did it through drugs. I did it through binge eating, really anything to avoid how I was feeling. And this is a practice, but there's how do I want to word this? There's an accelerated way to enhance the practice that I'll share with you today because that avoidance will make it harder, right? It's like, okay, I'll feel it in this moment where I've allowed myself to feel into safety in my body. And that is a great way to start a practice. But what accelerates the practice is to feel into the depth of the emotion. So I say expand with it to its completion. And then what happens is that release actually energizes you. Because sometimes, even when we're going to, deep tissue massage or to have Reiki done on us, sometimes the energy release is in like its middle or 2/3 of the way there. And when it's caught in that process of being fully released, it can actually drain us more. And that's when you feel tired afterwards. You might need some like 2 days of rest. You don't feel like going back to your regular like workout schedule, or you just feel like you have to go to sleep extra. When emotional release is done to its fullest completion, and that's whatever your capacity is at the state that you're in, it will energize you like nobody's business. Like, it is very liberating. And when you're liberated, you're free to move with an exceptional, like, resourceful power that's tapped into, and there's no outside, resource adding to that energy.
I've never heard it explained that way before, and I can say that I can't think of a time where I had a massage of any sort where I felt energized after. I always felt like, oh, I need to sleep for like 7 hours
Yeah.
and then move along. That's so interesting. So what do you recommend in those cases? Like, how do you start to understand, or how do you start to move through the full completion of what it is you want to feel and release? How do you get through there?
The biggest thing is having and holding safety in your body. So if you need outside assistance to bring you there in the beginning, do that. Someone who's guiding, who's facilitating. It could be through yoga. You go to a yoga class and you're listening to that facilitator's words to bring safety to the body and then to hold safety in the body. So that's first and foremost. But I think that I'm going to go back to something that you said pre-recording, is that we're not here to take things personally, right? The language, the perception of what we've had from others' expectations of what we need to be doing or should be like, that's taking things personally. But in this area of growth, you're no longer taking things personally, you're making it personal. So one of the things that has helped me, and this was a little bit more, I would say, on the edge of my beginner phase of working with emotions and working with my body more regularly, but mirror work is one of the quickest ways to make it personal and to be safe with you, right? Because mirror work means that you are making eye contact with you. And I do this with my clothes on now, but I actually started it with no clothes. So I would be naked in front of the mirror. And this was a really, like, I don't want to overuse the word transformation, but like in my learning to love myself, because I knew how to love people. I knew how to pour love onto people, but I didn't know how to give it back to myself. And I certainly didn't know how to receive it from other people. So in that early stage, it was bare body, bare naked, just seeing myself for who I am beyond any identity. So the little symbolisms, I think, that come in, when you don't have clothes on, when you don't have makeup on, even changing your practice, right? A very refined practice that you do, maybe morning meditation or evening ritual, or even your exercise. When you take out sometimes the symbolism of what it means, that you're curating this area of growth for yourself or healing for yourself, but you've defined it. And when you undefine it, when you step back and you put it in a different place, or you show up and you do a workout on the hilltop, right? Or you explore your healing in the bathroom versus a pillow in a room, right? Like, you're expanding yourself in that very aspect of changing the concept of how it's supposed to look, or what it does look like, or what it has looked like. And I think that change helps to really expand with our ability to see the emotion, feel the emotion, and be okay with the emotion. And when I say okay, I mean accept it fully.
Yeah, I think that you hit on an important point of that, like so much of what we think and feel and get caught up in is rooted in what we made it mean to begin with, right? Like sometimes the situation itself isn't as bad as the story we told ourselves about the situation. So I love the idea that you're saying that there's power in just being still and kind of evaluating what's in front of you, and like, and you said in the quite literal sense, like looking at yourself bare in the mirror and being able to release all the stories that were attached to how you felt about yourself, right? And just seeing who you actually are. It just, I feel like that opens up a whole different world of like self-compassion. How do you feel like when you said that you went from the punishing yourself with exercise and lifting weights to have the most fit body, not out of like a self-love, but right, because you had to fit this mold. You talked about using drugs. What was it for you that was a catalyst of saying, like, this is not what I want for myself?
Well, the birth of my daughter was a catalyst. She was a surprise birth or surprise conception. And I started the motherhood journey alone. And even though I had what seemed to be support, my dad and my stepmom said, we're inviting you into our home so that you can raise your daughter and feel safe and secure and start building your life back up. And that ended very quickly. Within 4 months, I was only seen from my stepmother's perspective as a misfit, as someone who wasn't a mother, who wasn't working full time, who was raising her baby and using, I'm going to put that in air quotes, using other people. And that ended very abruptly to put me in a place where I was homeless. I had no place to go. I had no money. And this started a chain reaction. And that chain reaction was an absolute blessing. It took me about a year to see that fully, but I ended up going to jail, not once, but twice. And again, that symbolism of having my freedom stripped from me, my voice stripped from me, and really the outcome completely out of my hands. Like it's in the judge, how they see things. It's in the lawyer. It's out of my hands completely. And I say this in a way, or I've described it in ways that being in a cell and looking outward into life has you start reflecting on your own life a little bit differently. And I saw it as being, me being backed up in a corner with two choices, two paths. The first path of, okay, I can do life in the same way and I can be complacent with that. Or I could go in a different direction and make some radical changes that I'm deathly afraid of, or at the time I'm deathly afraid of. But I've been shown what I'm most afraid of, which is losing my daughter and being away from her and not knowing when I'll return and those types of things. So it really started to change perspective. And I think the catalyst, initially was my daughter, but it was this multiple rock bottom moments in 2019 that said, wake the F up, wake up right now. And that was something I described a little earlier, pre-recording, which was that my body knew how to surrender. It was a very interesting place to be when you're inside jail without a voice. I learned quickly through what other women were saying in the facility and just my observation of what was going on, that if I were to show emotion of any kind, I would immediately be drugged and I would be a zombie. They would completely numb me. And that's not what I wanted anymore. I knew how to do that. And I knew how to do that by my own decision. And I was like, wait, no one's going to do that to me. How dare you? And so I remained stoic because I knew how to do that really well. I even had a judge when I was getting my daughter back. She asked me like why I wasn't showing an emotion. And I told her, if I let myself go there, I will not have anything to say. I will be on my knees. It's when you see a woman who's grieving her child, she's either stoic because she's numb, or everything in her is being released. Yeah. So I knew that I would go there if I let myself. And my body knew how to surrender in that moment. And the 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 unconscious choice to surrender showed me a lot of things that were happening in my favor from that point on. And I don't want to go into details, but everything from that moment that I was in jail the first night, where my body chose to surrender, I was no longer steering the ship. There was a higher power that moving me in the direction that I needed to go. And it was serving me in ways that you could not have an explanation for why things were happening in the way that they were. But point blank, I was being provided for. And that was a big wake up call for me.
Can you talk a little bit about what does it mean? The word surrender itself, what does that feel like to you, right? Like, I feel like it's not the easiest concept to just grab onto. Like, what do you mean surrender? Let go, throw my hands up. What are you saying? What did that look like for you?
To choose to surrender is way harder than letting your body do it. Like your body will naturally do it in really, really tested times, your body will do it. Even in if we think about like a car accident, your body surrenders to the motion of the car, like to rebound with you. You tend to tell your mind to like stiffen up, but your body does what it naturally knows to do in a very like abrupt, or like how football players will fall. They've trained themselves, but it's also the body's surrender of how to land and fall with that hard, abrupt bang or wake up kind of thing. So to actively choose, I might get untwisted because it's not simple. It's not simple or easy, actually. I wish it was easy or simple, but if I could say it in the simplest manner, it's to get your mind out of the equation. Because your mind is the only thing that's stopping you. Your body knows how to do it. Your body knows what to do, knows when to do it. So the only thing that's stopping you is your mind.
Yeah.
And so I've been trained in the emotional freedom technique, which uses the tapping on acupressure points of the body. That has been vastly transformative in being able to get out of my thinking, analytical, reasoning mind and stay in my body. But now that I've done that and I've trained that way, and I've trained my body to stretch myself with that, to not resist so much, like to know when a thought comes up to explore it further. And when I explore it further, I go deeper. When I go deeper, there's more substance around it, right? So like tapping can be limiting, and it's always coming down to the handler, the driver, you. And so you to go that distance, for you to decide, I'm willing to go further. I'm willing to see myself in this space that I haven't seen myself in. That unknown is scary, but I'm willing to go there.
Yeah.
So you just got to stay with it. But simply get out of the mind.
I mean, I feel like I resonate with that because I can think of two specific times where I had like decisions that were very difficult to make. And, I don't know, people have all different beliefs. I believe in God. I've learned to have a relationship with him over focusing on religion, which is what I was raised with. But I've had two separate times where I had to make a decision that felt huge, right? And I was in my head about it, weighing the pros and cons, writing the lists. What do I do? What feels right? Trying to feel into my body, like which decision is best for me. And finally, I can picture myself like arguing with God, like I'm done trying to figure this out. When you're ready to help me, let me know. And it's like in that moment when I'm like, just tell me. That for me was my release. That was my relinquishing control and saying like, okay, we're going to let it be what it's supposed to be. And within seconds, I feel the right answer flow to me because it was like I got out of my head and got off of my lists and just trusted like it's the surrender. Yeah. Getting out of.
Yeah. I like to see that part of our mind tends to be like the one who holds the most judgment, also holds the most control. And that to me is one of the messy parts of accepting yourself, because the part that judges yourself the most is the one who also tends to hold the most control. And it is, when I say this sweet surrender, there's a point where self-awareness without self-acceptance can be this like very cyclical loop of self-suffering, where you know what to do, you know these, you have the knowledge, you have the concepts, you have the understanding, but it hasn't been felt. And so that means that you're all in your mind. And like you said, a very, very direct question where you say it and that's it. Because when you're speaking to God, God, all, right? You're leaving it, you're leaving yourself out of the equation. I give this to you, I give this message, I ask this question. It is now relinquished from me, and therefore I relinquish the control of what the answer is, therefore the outcome. And that's when, yeah, that's when we're spoken to in the most genuine way through ourselves and through God, that here it is.
Yeah.
This is the answer. This is your direction and this is your place.
Mm-hmm. And it feels so, it's just gentle and not forced at all. The way we were trying to get there to begin.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a big deal. That really is a big deal.
Which I think is, there's like comedy in that, because when an answer comes through and it's very gentle and it's like as if you've known it the whole time, there's no more force. But we part of our mind expects things to be hard. And when force is applied, it's reiterating that hardness. And if things come easy, is it for me? Is it going to work out? Because I've always known things to be hard. And that was very much the line of choosing, feeling easier to choose punishment and pain over things to be easy and gentle and enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. And just literally just more aligned. I love that. Can you talk a little bit about just the concept of self-forgiveness in the sense of how do we separate, maybe we start there. How do we separate this self-judgment, this guilt and shame that we were kind of raised with, this idea of ignoring ourselves to love other people first and foremost? How does self-forgiveness play a role in any of that?
Yeah, I've used the format. It's the whole pair. It's a very simple format that I've gone back to over and over again. And you say, I'm sorry, and you fill in everything that you are sorry for. I'm sorry for putting you through that pain and punishment, thinking that that was more important for you to feel than genuine happiness. I'm so sorry for forgetting about you so many times and putting other people's needs first at the expense of your own needs. And then please forgive me. Please forgive me for all the times for shutting you out and shutting you down. Please forgive me for thinking that your voice is not important and it's not meant to be heard. Please forgive me for, squeezing out every last drop of energy to make you be something that you're not, right? And then thank you. Thank you for continuing to show up even through all of that pain and punishment. Thank you for validating me in my most vulnerable moments. And then I love you. I love you for all that you are. I love how strong you are and committed you are to making life work with you and for you, no longer against you. And so that really simple format, I think it's important to identify what part of ourselves that we're speaking to and forgiving. And so if you can identify, it doesn't have to be this way. You can just say, I am sorry to yourself. But I think if you have more clarity around who you're forgiving, and you can visualize speaking to that part of you. So maybe it is, if we're talking about a history of being on diets and thinking that you needed to be smaller in order for people to accept you and show you love and give you love since you were 14, then you are imagining your 14-year-old self. How did she look? Picture her in your room. Like, did you isolate yourself in your room to hide yourself? What kind of clothes were you wearing at 14? Picture her visualize her, bring her into the picture, and then speak to her. So when you identify with that part of you, you're really getting to the depth of what she felt, how insecure she felt, how alone she felt with these really, really isolating feelings, and that she didn't want anybody else to know. So she just kept pushing, and she went on extra runs, and she would do two-a-days on top of a sport, and whatever it was that she was doing to herself and against herself in that battle, you're speaking to her. And that really starts to resonate with the body because you've now visualized her and you're connected to her.
Brings you as a woman, right? The feelings that we were raised with go in direct opposition to what we actually want to feel as human beings, right? What do you think this practice of forgiveness does for you? How does that show up in your, I guess, mental and physical life?
Well, it brings a sense of, it brings a sensation of compassion towards yourself that you may not have been able to touch on by the understanding of what compassion is like. And so, again, you can be compassionate and empathetic towards other people and know what that's like to give. But to receive compassion and to really open yourself up to it is self-forgiveness, is making the space to feel it, to sense what it feels like. And so my daughter, when I was going through this process, 2 to 4, my daughter was like 2 to 4 years old and in the beginning stages. And I remember at 4 years old, it was in our kitchen, I was standing, I had the refrigerator door open, and we were having this conversation going back and forth, and she was talking about mean words that she was saying. And she goes, "Mommy, when I say mean words, I don't love myself." And she made a really early connection to her mind will say mean things and it's not coming from her heart. And so when we forgive ourselves, we're connecting to our heart. We're getting out of the mind, right? And we're connecting to the body, to that identity of ourselves and also to the body. And that will start to see when thoughts come afterwards, because they will, the judgment will keep coming. When that voice comes through, judgment, there's space in the body to feel into compassion and compassion for that voice, which is a very interesting, I guess, nuance in it, right? To have compassion for our judger, but that's what it needs because the judger is fueled by harsh criticism and relentless pressure. But when we show compassion for our judge because we know how to feel it in our body, then it neutralizes its tone, its aggression, and then we can move ourselves to then come back to, or I would say even reside in what is spoken through compassion. Like what's my compassionate voice say to me now? Now that I've met this judger, that's ridiculous. Why would you do that? Show compassion for that voice. And then identify like what we've been through this and it's been hard and that's okay. And you know how to move yourself through.
Yeah.
You have the strength to move yourself through. That feels more compassionate and understanding. So I think those two go hand in hand. Understanding is the basis of feeling compassion.
I agree. How do you think that living in the way you do now, right? More in your body than in your mind. How do you think that that impacts the way that you interact with other people? Do you see a difference in your relationships with others because your relationship with yourself is different?
Yeah. One of the biggest, I spent about 5.5 years alone with my daughter, raising her as a solo parent. And that was a huge testament to the work that I was doing inside of me and within myself, because without having done that work, my patience was not there. I was everything as a parent I represented in the early stages of me making that, critical moment to stand up for myself and to have a voice for myself and to do things differently. I was representing everything that I despised in my household as a child. Impatient, aggressive, short-tempered, blame, the frustration that I was feeling within myself was then projected out onto my daughter and to other people around me. And that was either through expressing it vocally, or that was through like ignoring, avoiding, and isolating. So now I lean into conversations. Now I don't jump in, especially when it comes to my daughter. There's times where I feel that, and this is always a dance, where my words can be a guiding force, supports the conversation and supports both of us, or I can lean back and just let her express whatever she needs to express. And I'm able to witness her in those really tough moments where she's saying mean things about herself. And you know, in those moments, I'm like, this is everything that I held in as a child, because I would be criticized, or I would be punished, or I would be just sent off to my room. I don't want to see it and I don't want to hear it because I don't have the capacity as a parent. That's what I came from, right? A lot of us come from that. And so I was just shoved off to isolate in my room, or to not feel it, just stop feeling it. And so my body just clung to that feeling and that thought of like, okay, I'm not allowed to. This is not allowed. And so to give her the space to be allowed to express herself, she's a little trickster, but she's not using it as like back talk. She's using it to not hold on to it for herself. And, you know, there's still that maternal like cringe moment where I'm like, oh God, like I need to jump in and help her and support her. And then I trust and I lean back and I hear it, you know, from a distance, and I hear the tone change, right? It goes to a peak, whether it's screaming or it's crying intensely, it peaks, and then it's free. It liberates itself and it winds down. And then I make sure that there's always that safety and comfort that's met at the end as well. And I remind her how proud I am. I include touch, hugs, hand holding, eye contact. And that just totally changed. I mean, for me to make eye contact with myself in the mirror was the difference of me being able to make genuine eye contact through vulnerability and vulnerable moments with my child and with other people.
Yeah. I just feel like it's such a testament to the fact that the things that we heal in ourselves are for us, but they're never just about us, right? Like you literally are healing generations by teaching and allowing your daughter to just feel what she feels, and then like live in compassion for herself. Like it's just such a beautiful freedom that you're giving her, and such a beautiful sense of self.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And
I'm thinking that the things that we do today are just, they're going to continue to show evidence in the people that come after us constantly.
yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
And I want to say this because emotions still have a bad rap in general, that the swing in this generation is too emotional. Emotions aren't meant for other people. They're meant for us. And so whether that's a choice to be emotional around other people or not, will be different in every moment, every situation, and every stage of our life. But the more that we can, I'm going back to that, make it personal. The more we can make it personal, and not to say like I need to shut myself out in order to be emotional, but to honor ourselves in those moments where I'm going to take this time to sit with them, not to analyze them, but to sit with them. And there's always a time and a place to start to, you know, understand and start to connect the dots and ask further questions about where this emotion could be coming from. As someone who's been coaching for almost 10 years and has this background, I have to catch myself analyzing emotions constantly, or analyzing situations and observing and connecting. It's how my brain operates. And I'm gentle with myself because I know that this is just part of my process and I'm okay with that. But emotions, when we make them personal and we don't have to have someone see us be vulnerable in order to know that we're vulnerable. I mean, I did a forgiveness letter to my partner And I never showed him the letter. And I just wrote it. And immediately after writing, I don't know, it was about a page, about two situations that I really wanted to offer him forgiveness for. I didn't know if I was going to talk to him about it. As soon as I walked into the room with him, he made eye contact with me and engulfed me in a really long and warm hug. And it was felt. There was no needing to make something of it. And so I think that's part of the practice, is knowing when you make it personal and you see yourself through these emotions, and that you can rely on supporting yourself. Having others to support you is amazing, and it's amazing part of journeying through and evolving our practice and evolving ourselves. But it doesn't always have to look like that.
Right. Beautiful. It's beautiful. Juliana, I am so grateful that you were here today, and I'm so grateful for you sharing not only your story and your journey, but just the energy that you literally live with. I can see in your eyes this calm and this peace and this comfort. And I feel like, if anything that we're striving for, that's what we all want to feel, is ease and comfort and calm in our spirit first and foremost. So thank you for just being you. If people wanted to reach out and work with you, I know you mentioned that you are coaching. How can they find you on socials or programs? What do you got going on?
Yeah, speaking of life on our own terms, I like to keep things old school. And so I open up space for a conversation. And the easiest way to have a conversation with me is to message me on Facebook. And we go from there, because that's really all. I mean, that's, to me, the start of something that's meant to transform itself. And whether I'm there to serve and support through that transformation, or you are just acknowledging more of yourself through opening up that line of communication, voicing something, someone that is and holds safety in her spaces, to me, that's everything. So a message on Facebook, I'm there almost every day, and I will see the message pretty quickly. And right now, my service it's evolved so much that my limitless leadership sessions are one-time sessions. And we meet for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. And we go deep. We go deeper than sometimes, I've had women be in a year of therapy, 3 years of therapy, and we go deeper in one session than they had in that time period. Again, it's always about where you're meeting me and meeting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So your willingness to go the distance will be matched with my willingness and ability. And that is a powerful surge of energy, a force that cannot be touched. So that's what I offer today, is a one-time session to open you up, expand you, evolve you, and feel deeply into acceptance of all of you. And I'm co-hosting a challenge right now on Facebook. It's called Holiday Harmony Challenge. Mm-hmm. And that's also about looking at your traditions in your holiday season and what has been expected of you to do and to show up for, and what is really meant for you in this season. What do you feel most aligned with? That doesn't mean shutting all doors or not showing up to your family Christmas party, but it's really about understanding, sitting with, maybe a little evaluating, but knowing what is meant for you in this season and what is not.
I love it. I love all of it. Juliana, before I can let you go, I do have to ask the question of the hour. And the question is, how does minding yours, connecting with yourself, being aligned with who you are, ignoring everything outside of you, how does minding yours impact the legacy that you think you'll leave?
I'm going to take a moment, because I close my eyes and I'm feeling into that question. I'll start with saying that legacy was not on my radar when I played and felt small. And so legacy has been shaped and reshaped in my mind's eye a few times in the past couple of years. And for me to mind mine, it has awakened me to, I'm trying to find the words, myself. And it's an interesting area to be when you're letting go of old identities and learning what the depth of you is like, and is massively powerful. And this has come up a few times that has actually scared me of how powerful she is. And leaving my legacy means that I am forging paths, multiple paths, because everyone has their own to forge, but I am forging pathways of this power that is nothing like the power that we see over us and ours today. It is the power that exists in God, in all beings, and it is of pure love. It is of forgiveness, and it is of conviction of what is true, which is massively different than our lives that we live today. And the legacy is in every aspect of how I live intentionally. I didn't really get into this on this episode, but my service to humanity stretches into my support and service of animals and the land and me as a consumer. And it just stretches so far and gives me an incredible hope and faith of this legacy that I'm a part of.
Beautiful and so powerful, truly. Juliana, thank you so much. And everyone else, thank you for joining us both today on this amazing conversation and tuning into another episode of Minding Mind. If this episode resonated with you, please comment, rate, and review the show. You know that your feedback continually helps me grow. And until next time, I want you to go live your life on your terms and mind your business. We will catch you in the next episode.
That was amazing.
That was so good.